Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer deck tech, and today we're going to be talking about Gruul, Wolves, and Werewolves in Pioneer. This is a very, very fun list. I'm really excited to bring this list to you. As always, let me know in the comment section below after the video, what do you like about the list, what do you hate, what would you change, and as always, if there's any suggestions that you have for upcoming videos, just feel free to let me know in the comment section below. And before I will also mention that at the end of the video, but I also recently played this deck in paper. I will leave a link for the video in the description below. It'll also be at the end of the video. You can click on the link there. I played it in paper as part of our Pioneer Showdown, kind of some of the videos that we do on the channel here. We play some paper Magic, kind of talk about everything. It's really, really fun. You should feel free to check that out if you'd like to. So, all right, Gruul Werewolves. It's a really fun aggro deck. There's tons of different Gruul aggro decks you can play in the format, and this is just another flavor of that, which we get to play some very unique cards. But there's also some cards that happen to be werewolves that are already very, very powerful. So let's go ahead and hop into it here. So a couple of 1-drops and a great 2-drop. Actually, probably the best card in the deck. We're playing 4 Ascendant Pack Leader and 4 Kessig Prowler as our 1-drops. So these are just pretty standard 1-drop creatures. They're essentially just 2/1s for a green. They do have some upside though, obviously. So Ascendant Pack Leader, you know, it enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it if you control a permanent with value 4 or greater, which we only have a couple, but it does come up. But the main other thing, which is great, is whenever you cast a spell with mana value 4 or greater, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So, if we play, spoiler alert, Night Pack Ambusher, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and then also it gets +1/+1 from it itself. So, just a good solid 1-drop. Kessig Prowler is not too exciting for the most part. It's really, again, just a 2/1 for 1 green. I decided to play these over, like, Land Werewolves and Elvish Mystic just because I wanted to be a little bit more aggressive. I will show what the flip side does of that in our next slide here, but we still have to talk about Werewolf Pack Leader. Easily the best card in the deck. For those who play a lot of Pioneer, this card is everywhere, and there's a reason why. It is fantastic. It's also really good with another card that's going to be on the following slide, which we'll talk about that in a minute. It's like the best 1-2 punch in the deck, which obviously we'll get to that in just a moment. But the backside of Kessig Prowler, it's 4 green to transform it. What does it do? It's a 4/4 that can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. So, obviously, solid stats. It's a 4/4. Kind of like Menace, but it's not Menace. It can only be blocked by 1 creature, so it's kind of the opposite. So, but anyways, still a very, very good card. Late game, you can transform it. Why not? So, all right, let's hop into our next slide here. We're playing 4 Kessig Naturalist. Kind of an interesting card. You don't really see this card come up very much, which obviously the flip side we'll look at in just a moment. When it attacks, you make a red or green mana. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end, which can be pretty solid. You get extra mana. You either miss a land drop, or we can play, for instance, like, again, I keep talking about Night Pack Ambusher, but we play this on turn 2, turn 3, attack. As long as we play our 3rd land, we can flash in an Ambusher, which is fantastic. We're also playing 4 Reckless Stormseeker, which is the very good 1-2 punch with Werewolf Pack Leader. We can play Pack Leader on 2, Stormseeker on 3, attack for 6, trigger the Pack Tactics, and draw a card, which is awesome. Reckless Stormseeker, obviously fantastic card in the format as a whole. For those who play a lot of Pioneer, you're going to see this card quite a bit. We're also playing 3 Tovolar Dire Overlord. 3/3 for 3. Whenever a wolf or werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, and then your upkeep, if you control 3 or more wolves and or werewolves, it becomes night, and then you can transform any number of human werewolves we control, and it has Daybound as well. Let's go ahead and look at the back sides of these. So, Lord of Uvenwald, it's an anthem. It's great. It's a lord. Gives our creatures our wolves and werewolves specifically, goodness. And it's also 3/3, which keeps the same ability as the front side. Stormcharge Slasher, obviously fantastic. Gives +2/+0 trample and haste as opposed to just 1/0 and haste. Fantastic. Tovolar just gets a little bit bigger. Keeps its triggered ability with combat damage, but also it gets Kessig Wolfrun, which is just X red-green. Target wolf or werewolf you control gets +X/+0 and gains trample until end of turn, which is definitely a fantastic ability. So, obviously a couple of cool transform werewolves. I would say these cards are kind of the heart of the deck. I would say definitely the Reckless Stormseeker and Tovolar definitely are fantastic in the deck. So let's go and take a look at some of our last creatures here that we're playing. We're playing 2 Cemetery Prowler. It doesn't transform, but it is a very, very good card. 3/4 for 3 with Vigilance is a pretty good stat line. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each card type they share with cards exiled with Cemetery Prowler. So, you know, we get rid of our opponent's creatures from their yard. Our creatures cost less, you know, and obviously that goes for anything else, which can definitely be pretty huge. I remember when this card first came out, it wasn't in a werewolf deck, but I definitely remember, like, exiling an instant my opponent controlled, and then, like, after damage or whatever, I like double stomped them for 1 mana each, which was fantastic. So you can definitely do some pretty cool things with Cemetery Prowler, but the main reason we're playing it is it keeps our opponent's graveyards at bay. We get rid of their Arclight Phoenixes, you know, their Storm the Festivals, that kind of thing. It's just really good at keeping that graveyard clear. We're also playing 4 Nightpack Ambusher, even though I already referenced it twice. This is probably one of the better cards in the deck. Gives our Wolves and Werewolves +1/+1. And at the beginning of your end step, if you didn't cast a spell this turn, create a 2/2 Green Wolf creature token, which I really, really like with a lot of the transform Daybound, Nightbound cards, you know, because obviously we don't want to cast a spell, so that way our really good creatures can transform, you know, which normally it's like, I don't get to cast a spell, so, you know, I lose out on some value because I'm not casting something else. But we don't lose the value, because if we don't cast a spell, we get a 2/2 Green Wolf, and then our creatures transform the next turn, which is fantastic. So Nightpack Ambusher is absolutely one of the best cards in the deck. We're also playing 2 Arlen the Pack Soap. It itself is not a wolf until we activate an ability on the flip side, which we'll look at that in just a second. Obviously, the +1 is fantastic. Gives our creatures a flash, and each creature you control enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it, which is just great. And then -3, create 2 wolves, which is just good. You know, that's just pretty good value. Then let's go and look at the backside of Arlen. Obviously, we can add 2 loyalty to add red-green to our mana pool, which is fantastic. But the main reason we play it as for the 0 until end of turn, Arlen becomes a 5/5 werewolf creature with trample, indestructible, and haste, which is a very good stat line. And then hopefully on top of that, it's Nightbound, so it's getting, you know, an additional +1/+1 from like the Kessig Naturalist or the Nightpack Ambusher. Just a very, very good card in general. And we're only playing 6 4-drops, so we don't have a lot to trigger our Ascendant Pack Leader, but doesn't matter. It's still a good card overall. So those are all of our creatures that we're playing. Technically, we still have a couple more cards to talk about here. So we're playing 2 Ranger class. Itself obviously is not a wolf, but it makes a wolf when it enters. Then we can go to level 2. Whenever you attack, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature. And then 3 and a green for level 3. You may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may cast creature spells from the top of your library. Very good late, you know, it's a good mana sink in the late game. Obviously makes a, you know, it's 2 mana for a 2/2 wolf, and then it just gets up from there. We don't have something to do on turn 3 for some weird reason. We can just go to level 2, attack with our wolf, and then it's a 3/3, you know, like we always have something to do when we have Ranger class and we have some mana, which is just fantastic. So I really, really like Ranger class. It's a very, very underrated card, I feel like, in the deck. Then we're playing 4 Moonlight Hunt. It is a fantastic removal spell. It's insane how much damage this thing can deal. You know, 1 and a green instant, choose target creature you don't control. Each creature you control that's a wolf or werewolf deals damage equal to its power to that creature. For instance, in the paper video we played, you know, it was like, I did like 9 damage for like 2 mana, which is kind of like almost the standard, it seems like. At very minimum, you're going to be doing like 2-3 damage with the Moonlight Hunt. So you can pretty much take out most creatures with this card, which is just awesome. I really, really like Moonlight Hunt in the deck. Definitely one of the more main reasons to maybe have some motivation to play some wolves or werewolves just in general. So that's our entire main board, except for our lands, which we're going to run through those real quick. We're playing 4 Stomping Ground, 4 Copperline, 3 Carplusian Forests, obviously pretty standard for Pioneer lands in general. We're also playing 4 Crackground Pathway, 1 Boseiju, 1 Sekenzen. Obviously, you know, makes sense, they're untapped. Boseiju, Sekenzen, great flex lands to be playing in general. Then we're also playing 2 Lair of the Hydra and 2 Mutavault as our man lands, which are obviously great. Lair of the Hydra, you know, it's not a wolf or a werewolf, but it's still fantastic. But Mutavault is a wolf and a werewolf, which is fantastic. So, you know, we can activate it. You know, we even with the Moonlight Hunt, we can get an additional 2 damage in just because it is also wolf or werewolf. Just a great card in general to be playing. And then rounding out our lands, we're playing 1 forest and 1 mountain. I chose the spicy ones from Innistrad Midnight Hunt just because a lot of our cards are from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. I really like the art on these. The foils also look pretty good, and actually in my deck I have foils of each of these, which are fantastic. So really like the art on these. So that's our entire main board, but don't go anywhere yet. We still have to talk about the sideboard and our budget options. So sideboarding. Obviously, we're going to need some Graveyard Hate. In my list, I'm currently playing Tormod's Crypt and 1 Grafdigger's Cage. There's definitely some other options you can play, but those are the ones that I chose to play in my list. Then removal. We obviously need some extra removal. That is for Witch Stalker's Frenzy. That's what the WS is for. That card is fantastic. It's essentially kind of like an instant speed roast in a way. I'm trying out that card, and I really, really like it so far, so I highly recommend it. It's from Wilds of Eldraine. It's just a very, very good card in general. And then I'm also playing a couple of Lithomantic Barrages or Rending Volleys just for like the Mono White Spirits or Mono White Humans Spirits. That's why we're also playing those. If there is some Greasefang in your metagame, I highly suggest Rending Volley though for the instant speed. We also have some Artifact and Enchantment Hate. My personal recommendations would be Cindervines and also Outland Liberator. It's the transforming one where you can sacrifice it to blow up an artifact or enchantment. But if it's a werewolf, when it attacks, you get to destroy an artifact or enchantment. So it's just a very, very good card in general. And it's a werewolf, so it kind of adds to the theme a little bit. And then I put artifact sideboard cards, meaning like Damping Sphere, which is obviously fantastic. There's a couple different other options you could play for artifact sideboard cards. You know, like if you really wanted to play the Weathered Runestone, it's also fantastic, you know. But the main reason is for the Damping Sphere, because obviously it's just fantastic against like the mono green decks. It's good against the Lotus combo. It's also really good against Is It Phoenix, that kind of thing. But a lot of it depends on your metagame. If you want to check out my exact sideboard, it's in the description below. You can just click on the link, and then obviously it'll take you right to the entire 75 that I'm playing. And we still have one more thing to talk about. We have to talk about the budget options. So budget options, overall, this deck is extremely cheap. How it is right now, it's about $160. So I wanted to include a couple things on here. The creatures are cheap. Most of the creatures in this deck are less than $1. The only cards that are really of value is like the Reckless Stormseekers. Those are going to fetch you about $1.50, $2 a piece. The Arlens are like $2 a piece. The deck is very, very cheap, so you really don't have to cut any creatures like some of our other decks that we do on here. You get to play pretty much the exact same creatures that we're playing right now. And then obviously cutting the shocks for the slow lands. I wish I could remember the slow land's name right now, and I feel terrible. It is the land from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. I would say that's probably the main budget option, at least for the dual lands. The other dual lands we play are relatively cheap. If you don't want to pay like the $5-6 a piece for the Crag Crown and Timber Crown pathway, you know, you could kind of just play like the Pain lands, the slow lands, and then the fast lands as well, and that should definitely be a pretty good mana base for you. And then as always, you could cut the utility lands, meaning like the Sekenzan, the Beseju, the Mutavaults, and the Lairs. Lairs are pretty cheap, so I would try to pick those up, but Mutavaults, those can be, you know, a couple bucks a piece. They're not 100% essential for the deck, but they can definitely help, especially with Tovolar. We can draw some extra cards, that kind of thing, and they get buffed with all of our lords. But the other thing I want to include is this deck can easily be under $50. If you just trim the lands a little bit, you are easily under $50. It's not hard to get this deck under there if that's something you're interested in doing. So that is the entire deck tech. I'd like to thank everybody for watching this video. I've been meaning to do Wolves and Werewolves for so long. I never got around to doing it just because I kind of had other decks going on, some others I wanted to share with you. But this was a very, very fun deck. As always, I played this in paper, so if you want to check out that video, the link is in the description, and it's on screen right now for you if you'd like to check it out. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you in the next video.